Welcome back to the channel, guys. I apologize if the audio sounds a little off in this one. I'm actually using a external microphone just because the wind lately has been pretty crazy. This is actually the second time I'm making this video. The first time I went to go edit it and pretty much all you can hear was wind. So that was a 20-minute video lost for no reason. But today I want to show you a new product, actually, something I just recently bought. And that is the ActiveJetsport Dash Boost. Now, those of you that watch my channel, you know that one of the biggest gripes I have with SeaDoo is that they don't really give you many metrics on the screen. Now, you can see that I have a few aftermarket things here. For example, this is the OEM depth finder. You can see we're in 13 feet of water here. And I also have the ActiveJetsport engine temperature. You can see right there, engine coolant, currently 183 degrees. And now I also have the Dash Boost readout. So this is great because this is actually the first module, at least that I'm aware of, that gives you a boost readout on your display. I know that there was a Dash Pack module years ago, but I don't think that exists anymore. So for current skis, this is pretty much the only way that you can get a numerical boost readout right on the cluster. Now, those of you that have had something like a 2016 SeaDoo or prior, I forget what exact year they were, they would actually give you a graph at the very top of your gauges that would tell you basically how much boost you were running, but it wasn't numerical. It was essentially just a graph, basically similar to how your fuel chart works. This is the first module that actually gives you a numerical readout to see how much boost you are pushing. If you're like me, you have a supercharged ski, you like to know metrics, you like to see how your ski is doing. And unfortunately, there's no real easy way to do that while you're on the water, unless you have like HP tuners or the Map Tuner Nano and you have your phone in data log mode. But this will just put it right onto the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about this. And the reason I'm out on the water, whoa, I just realized the screen got all small. That's what I get for doing it on my phone. I want to show you how easy this is. Obviously, it's just an OBD connection. This is something you can plug in on the water. Super easy to do. But I'll talk about it real quick. So this module is plug and play. If you just plug it into your OBD connection, you're going to get a boost readout in PSI. Now, those of you that are into performance, you know that there are two metrics for boost. There is boost, which is calculated. That's essentially the manifold pressure minus atmospheric pressure. And then there's the absolute, which is basically just how much air is flowing through. So for those of you that are not aware, let's say your ski is running 15 PSI. Well, that's 15 PSI above atmospheric. So if you look at data logs, it's going to say, around 30 PSI. Atmospheric pressure, by the way, is around 14.7 PSI. That will vary depending on where you are. In my case, I'm sea level. This is a river, but we're pretty much at sea level. So atmospheric for me is around 14.7. So if I were to take a data log on this ski, it would show 32 PSI, something like that. That does not mean that I'm running 32 PSI of boost. It just means that is the absolute pressure, whatever the map sensor is reading. So we would take that 32 minus 14.7, and that is your true boost. Well, this module here will do both of those readings for you. Now, I imagine most people are only going to be concerned with true boost. That's what they want to see, how much positive boost they are running. That is what you are going to get out of this by default. You plug it in, you're going to get boost on the screen. If you want to switch to absolute, on this screen, I have the split screen design. All you would do is press up and down on your right hand stick here. That will switch it over to absolute. And then of course there's also a KPA, kilopascal measurement as well. So you get 4 possible readouts on this module. Most of us are probably only going to be referencing PSI, or at least here in the United States. We don't use KPA for measurements here. So with that being said, I want to show you how easy this is to plug in and get working. One thing I'm going to point out though is that this is actually going to use the depth finder readout, this channel right here, and that measures in feet. Not only feet, it also measures in solid numbers, at least here in the US for imperial measurements. If you are international or whatever, or if you're using metric, it's going to be slightly different for you. But here in the US, we show solid digit in feet, which means that when we have this guy plugged in, it's actually going to show on the screen in solid number without a decimal point. So that can be a little bit confusing for people, but it's actually very, very simple. So this is a 3-position number. You can see we're displaying 12 here, but it actually reads 3 digits. So right now, that says 12 feet. And keep in mind, this is just a depth finder. I just want to show you how this works. If I had the Dash Boost plugged in and it said 12 like that, that would actually mean 1.2 psi. If it showed 20, that would be 2.0 psi, so 2 psi. If it showed 21 or 210, that would mean we're running 21 psi. So we just have to imagine a decimal in front of that first digit there, and that's what's going to be our reading. Again, if you are metric, it's going to be slightly different for you. This is just how it is for imperial. It sounds more confusing than it is, but I promise you, it makes a lot more sense when you actually see it on the screen. The other thing I want to point out is, again, if you're running this in boost mode, PSI boost mode, you have to remember that you have to overcome that atmospheric. So when you first plug this in and you're running and you're going 5-10 miles per hour, you may not see anything on the screen, or it'll just show 0. That's because even though your supercharger is spinning and it's producing boost, it hasn't overcome the vacuum of the engine. So you haven't broken that 0 yet. You basically go from negative to 0 and then above. That's anything above 0, which is 14.7 atmospheric pressure, is boost. So that's when you're going to start to see some numbers. So let's go ahead and we'll pull the seats back. I'm out here on the water, so I'm just going to, we'll move the seats back a little bit. I'll show you how easy it is to install. And by the way, if you end up buying this, you do get a diagnostic splitter, so that if you wanted to run any other accessories like the engine temperature sensor or the map tuner, you could definitely do so. All right, so I have the seats off. And for those of you that are wondering, you can see that I actually am running a new battery. It's another battery I'm doing some testing on. We'll get to that later, but all we need to do here is unplug our diagnostic connection. Now I currently have 2 things plugged in, just like I said, the depth finder and the engine temperature sensor. So we're just going to disband that for now. We're going to go ahead and actually, I'm going to disconnect this key just so it isn't completely confused when we do this. Try to do this one-handed. We'll get this guy lined up. Plug this in like so. There we go. And now we have a boost measurement. So I'm going to put the seat on, and it looks calm, but it is quite a bit choppy, at least to be able to do this one-handed. So we'll see what I can do. But let's go ahead and give this an old test and see what we can find. All right, so engine's on. Take a look at the screen here, and you can see it says 0 feet. So remember, since it's using the depth finder channel, it's always going to show feet. I know it doesn't make any sense because we're actually measuring boost in PSI, but trust me, it's just once you use it once or twice, it makes perfect sense. All right, so I'm gonna try to get up the speed a little bit. I know it's gonna be a little bit difficult just because we are, it's a small number, and I'm trying to hold it in some choppy water, but we'll see if we can try to get some positive numbers. Keep in mind, this is a Riva Stage 3 ski. It's a 325, so it can produce around 20-22 psi of boost, 24 if I had a cam. I don't think I'm gonna be able to get that high back here, but let's see if we can at least get some positive numbers, and I'll show you what that looks like. I have no idea what was showing on the screen, but I did see 130 something at some point, which means we were producing 13 psi. So not bad at all. A lot of you will, if you go with this, you'll probably be surprised at how little the boost is throughout the RPM band until you get to the upper section of the RPM. Now, if you're running a Riva tune, for example, Riva does post their dyno graphs for most newer tunes. So you can actually see when peak boost should occur. Remember, it's not a linear curve like this for boost. It's actually more of like a bell. It will kind of taper at the top end where your supercharger just isn't efficient at producing boost anymore. I know for the 325 on the stage 3, that happens to be closer to the upper RPM band. So I was using this the other day, doing some test runs and things like that. I saw 224, which means I was producing 22.4 PSI of boost. So that's pretty awesome to see. Very easy, very awesome. Again, I say it all the time, I don't understand why SeaDoo does not include more metrics in their displays. It is good to see that on the newer 10.25 inch screen, they are including the battery voltage. That's at least something, because you don't get that on here. The only time you'll see a battery message is when your battery is running low. That's pretty much all I wanted to cover on this. Pretty straightforward video. It was just something I saw on the market. It was pretty interesting, and I know a lot of you guys like to have metrics like that, so if you're curious, I'll put the link in the description. That's pretty much it for that. One thing I want to try to do in this video is, since I have this external mic, I'm going to try putting the microphone in the engine bay just so you guys can hear what the stage 3 supercharger sounds like on the 325. I know a lot of you guys were asking that, and it's kind of hard just using a regular microphone because the wind noise just, it just muffles it out. You can't really hear it. So we're going to do an experiment here. I'm going to I'll find a spot. I'll just clip it on the wire harness or something in the engine bay. See if you can hear. It's obviously going to be much louder than it is in person, but hopefully it gives a better representation of how the supercharger sounds on this kit. So let's go ahead and try that out. Well, I just played that audio back and it sounds like crap. So I'll put a little bit in there so you guys can hear it, but trust me when I say the Riva Stage 3 supercharger, the XX charger on the 325 sounds absolutely incredible, especially when it's paired with a blow-off valve. Again, I have the Turbo Smart blow-off valve in here. So I'd say let's just go for a little bit of a ride. I'll take you guys around, show you normally where I ride here, and then we'll call it a video. So I am in the Delaware River, kind of between Delaware and Philadelphia. That's the Commodore Barry Bridge right there. And we're always in kind of air traffic. Zoom out here. You can see there's a plane right there. Harrah's Casino, straight across. There's also a Navy Yard. This happens to be one of the islands that will kind of dock and just kind of hang out. Always kind of a lot smoother back here. You can see, let me zoom in. You can see Philadelphia out there. Awesome spot to ride. The only downside with riding in this area is that there's absolutely nothing around. There's no restaurants on the water. There's no fuel docks or anything like that. There's like small pockets of beach, like you can see right there. So that's nice. We're actually going to go out to this island here on the other side. I'll show you guys that. But aside from that, we have nothing. You have to go way past North Philadelphia, like in the Bristol area, to find anything. And to go south, we have to go towards, kind of Wilmington before there's any restaurants or anything like that. So basically nothing in 15 miles or so, which is kind of unfortunate, but it's also nice because this is not a very populated area for boaters and jet ski riders. So that's nice. I say let's go ahead on the other side of this island and we'll hit one of the beaches. For this ride, I went and plugged in my depth finder again. You can see we're measuring in feet, even with the engine off. This area back here can get pretty shallow, so that's one of the downsides. But especially over here, like right in that spot, come on, focus you. Right in this spot right here, that's about 3 feet, and there's no way you would know that unless you had a depth finder. You would probably just hit the beach there, stuck up some rocks and stuff. That's how stuff happens. So let's go ahead. We're going to take a wide turn. We'll go out there, come around, and then we'll stop on this island right here. This is another time having a depth finder is really helpful, because we're going to beach this. I know there's no rocks up here, and we're basically going to stop the engine as soon as we see 3 feet on there. If you didn't, you just kind of have to guess. But we'll bring you in here. For the new riders, you absolutely never want to beach your ski with the engine running, because you're going to pump up sand and rocks. So there's 3 feet there. We'll shut the engine off. And I don't believe, I mean, there's some small rocks here. Oh, God. That was a big rock. Nice. All right, I'm going to pull this out and go a little bit more that way. Of course, the one spot I said there is no rocks, there is rocks. There's nothing there. I checked that. We're going to try down here. That way we get the sun. We'll pull in on there. Perfect. All sand, no rock. Just the way I like it. How's that? Perfect spot. This is you obviously can only get to this island by boat, and there's nobody out here right now. So I basically have, doesn't look like much. The beach does go around. A tree fell over here. But I have this whole area to myself right now, which is pretty cool. Now, funny story. I went riding the other day, Saturday now. This was on Thursday. And I was doing a very quick pass, trying to do a top speed run since it's been cooler out. And obviously, when you are riding these things and you're trying to get top speed, you have to ride in the tuck position, which is basically just, you know, lean back as far as you can. Well, when I was doing that, I started getting sprayed in the face. I was like, well, I thought somebody was in front of me because it was pretty calm out. There's no way water was coming over top. And then I looked to the side, and my bilge pump was pouring water. I mean, it was spraying out. And I thought, you know, maybe I cracked the hull or something, because, you know, with these things, the more power you push, obviously the risk of cracking the hull or whatever is going to be more of a concern. Even though everything on here is reinforced, I reinforced the front, reinforced the jet pump tunnel. It's still something I always think about. So, oddly enough, as soon as I stopped the ski, the water stopped pouring out, and I was probably 10-15 miles from home. I just wanted to see if it would be able to kind of limp its way back. It wasn't taking on a crazy amount of water. I was able to check that. I took the seats off and just took a look, just a little bit. And I started the engine. No more water was being bailed out. So I get it home and I take it apart, and I found out that the PTO, the bellows where the carbon seal sits, the worm clamp on it actually broke. It split in half, and there was no corrosion or anything on it. It was basically just the portion of the bellows that squeezes around the carbon seal. It wasn't the carbon seal itself. The carbon seal was fine. It was just the clamp that holds the bellows onto the carbon seal. So basically the vibrations and stuff from riding at high speed was causing that bellows to open, and that's what was letting water in. So very, very simple fix. I just had to get a new worm clamp. But the problem with that clamp was that it was over tightened from the factory. And this is one of the concerns that people run into, especially on SeaDoos for some reason. I don't know if it's a quality control thing, but the clamps that they use for the most part are decent clamps. Stainless steel, W4 grade. It's just that they are either not torqued down enough or they are over tightened. If they're under tightened, obviously hose clamps can pop off. One of the most common ones I see is the raw water feeds. Remember, when the pump is running on here, you're getting around 80 PSI of water pressure. If the hose clamp on any of the cooling components is not tightened enough, that hose is one of those hoses are going to pop off. And if it's a raw water feed, that is raw water. It's below the water line, so you can sink your ski that way. In my case, it was just the bellows. But my point remains. I mean, it was over tightened. Granted, this ski has 100 hours on it. So it was just a fatigue failure from being stressed over those 100 hours. I have not changed the carbon seal on here. The carbon seal itself is still in excellent condition. I took a look at it the other day. However, I just ordered a carbon seal kit for a 325 because I've been getting a lot of requests from people asking, how do you do it? So I think that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. Again, 100 hours is basically nothing for a carbon seal. As long as it's maintained properly, you can go 200, 300, 400, 500 hours. aren't a carbon seal. It's basically just a wear item. Remember, it's like brake pads on a car. There is no set service interval. It's basically just whenever it needs to be replaced, you replace it. So I'll go into more detail in that video, but let's just go ahead and just kind of walk around the island here. I don't really get too many riding videos, and a lot of people ask me to do that. So let's go ahead and just kind of walk around. This is a river, Delaware River, goes off into the Delaware Bay, and of course the ocean after that. I'll pull up a map so you guys can see mainly where I ride here. But this is all freshwater, so I think I've only had my ski in the ocean maybe 5-6 times, surprisingly. Usually I get a little bit more than that, but for the most part, this is all freshwater riding that I do here. And crazy how calm it is today. Normally, I mean, for the past couple of years, it's always been this calm, but this year, for some reason, it's just been windy every weekend. I don't understand why, but we're getting, it seems like it's finally starting to calm down a little bit, which is nice. All right, I say we leave this island and head over to the next one, which is kind of closer to the airport. Maybe we'll see a few more planes, but let's head up that way and see what we can find. This is one of those unfortunate spots where at high tide, you can absolutely hit it. At low tide, the mud and stuff just goes way too far out. So you can never really get close enough to the island. And even if you did, you would just be stepping in super messy mud that just kind of sinks you in. So this is like the perfect time to go out, luckily. And those of you that were wondering, I had this on here before, but you can see that graph on my watch there. That actually tells me the tide. Super convenient when I'm heading down to the marina, if I want to go to a ride or whatever, or even if we're already out here, I can see what the tide is doing and things like that. So that's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and hit the other island. Remember, if you do beach your skis, you always want to, ooh, a lot of mud down here already. It's like suction cupped. You want to pull it out and you want to start your jet pump in at least 3 feet of water. Otherwise, you know, the pumps are very, very powerful. You'll suck up rocks, and that's what happens. So that's how you damage your impellers. Start in at least 3 feet of water. That was pretty cool. That boater just stopped by. He saw me kind of pulling this, ooh, a little zoomed in there. Saw me pulling the ski and just stopped to make sure everything was fine. Very nice boaters. This area is one of those weird spots where jet ski traffic, there tends to be some people that just don't follow the rules, and it gives us a bad name. And then if you go on to the local boating groups, it just seems like everybody hates jet skis. They call them the river rats or whatever. So it's cool to see people that are nice and checking in, make sure everything's okay. Here's our next island, Tinicum Island. And believe it or not, back in the 1700s, Fort Mifflin is on the other side of this. There was a fort and barricades on the tip of this island here. And there's actually some sunken ships. I'll see if I can find a chart plotter or whatever and do an overlay if I can find it. But very old. And apparently some people have even found some wood from back then, which is pretty cool. But again, another island here that you can only get to by boat. It's a long stretch of land. The previous island that we were just at is way down there. So not too bad. There's about 3 or 4 islands that we go to out here. And this is, unfortunately, is one of those spots where it's kind of tricky to get on an island. There's actually a boater right where I wanted to go, so I'm gonna wait to see if they leave. But you can see we're pretty far. That's zoomed in, by the way. This is what it actually is. And we are down to 8 feet, which doesn't sound like much, but if we were to get a couple feet closer, we would actually be nearly touching the bottom, which is certainly not something you want to do. Very worth it, by the way, to have a depth finder. But let's wait a few minutes and we'll see if we can get right to where we want to go. Now this is more beach-like, much more fine sand. A lot of people don't know this is, 10-15 minutes right outside of Philadelphia. They don't think that, you would have this kind of thing here. But it's awesome. I've been riding this river for 7 or 8 years now. Pretty cool and wide open. Again, there's basically nobody out today. I have this entire beach to myself. There was one person around the other side, but it just came here instead. Little choppy from a boat that just passed by, but overall, an awesome spot. Now, how's that for peak luxury? It's a collapsible chair my wife got me. It actually fits in this small bag that I keep in the front storage bin for exact moments like this. You just, you know, toss it out, hit a beach, and now you have a nice little chair. While I'm here, might as well show you guys a few of the things I carry on board. A couple people have been asking me, and I just haven't had the chance to get a riding video. But one of the most important things, oops, I don't know what that was, I carry is this toolkit. I've probably used this maybe 5 times this year alone, not just my ski, but other skis as well. And I carry just a few things, zip ties. I have a socket wrench, screwdriver. But one of the most important things in here, see if I can dig it out, is this guy. This is a angled T30 bit. Super convenient for if you have to take off the engine panel when you are out riding. Again, sorry, I know it's windy, but this toolkit, super convenient. I've used it quite a few times now. Other thing, just a waterproof box, just in case. But this thing here, I wanted to show you, is a, man, it got choppy out of nowhere. Must have been that boat that passed by. Waterproof case for a jump pack. This is a Noco GB40. I've had this in quite a few videos now, but man, does this thing come in handy, because it's not just for me. Let's see, it's still fully charged. I've actually rescued a few boaters using this thing. It's powerful enough to jumpstart a V6, V8 boat, of course, as long as the battery's not completely dead. But one of those things that's definitely worth having on board. Waterproof case, super convenient. It's sealed, so you can just kind of toss it in the water if you need to. But I also have an emergency paddle. I mentioned that in a video before. I don't have it in here right now. SeaDoo fenders. That's pretty much it. I put these straps on, Waves RX straps. I think I have a video on that, but makes it convenient for keeping the docking lines accessible. You pull the lid up, they're right there. The other thing I have is this, I think it's a Jet Tribe tow rope. Has a float, so it doesn't, you know, the rope doesn't just go under the water. The one thing I like about this, and it's actually a complaint people have, is that it will break basically when you're towing a ski at a certain speed. And believe it or not, that's actually by design. This is not meant to tow, you know, 4 or 5. It's not a recovery rope, it's a tow rope. And that serves 2 purposes. When this shears, one, probably the most important, people don't know this, you can actually shear this hook off. If you're towing a ski that's sinking, it's not a 1,000 pound ski. It is 1,000 pounds plus an extra couple hundred pounds of water, plus it is sinking underwater, so you have all that drag. That ski is probably 4,000 or 5,000 pounds. Well, if you're trying to tow a ski at even just 5 miles an hour with that amount of weight, you are putting a crazy amount of stress on this hook, and you can actually tear the fiberglass. So that tow rope is actually, you know, by design, it will tear before you crack any fiberglass, which is pretty cool. And of course, the other thing I carry in here is the Waves RX. This is just a sand stomp anchor. So if I want the ski to float, this is fine sand. I don't mind beaching it. If there was rocks, I definitely would not. But if it was a rocky area, I would take the ski out, float it just offshore, and use that anchor so I could just kind of stomp underwater, anchor the ski, and that's pretty much it. Makes it super convenient. All right, guys, that's all for this video. I know it was only 5 minutes for the boost install. I wanted to show that to you guys. I know a lot of you really like the metrics as much as I do, but hopefully the little bit of riding video portion we did today was nice. It's a perfect day. It was supposed to rain out, and now it's 87 and sunny, so I had to take advantage of it. But that's all for this one. See you in the next video.